Hola querido oyente, por favor suscríbete a nuestro canal. Disfruta viendo. Mi trabajo siempre estuvo relacionado con riesgos que amenazaban la vida. Trabajaba en el Ministerio de Situaciones de Emergencia. Nuestro equipo respondía a diversas operaciones y rescatábamos a personas. Pero a pesar de mi vida agitada, tenía una familia. Mi esposa se llamaba Sarah. Teníamos una hermosa hija llamada Rachel, que tenía 9 años. Vivíamos en un apartamento que había sido un regalo de mi tía Amanda. Amanda no tenía hijos, pero siempre me había querido como si fuera su segundo hijo. Con el tiempo, Amanda falleció, dejándome un apartamento de 3 habitaciones en su testamento. Antes de eso, vivíamos en un apartamento de una habitación en alquiler. Así que, cuando nos mudamos al nuevo apartamento, nos pareció enorme, con mucho espacio para todos nosotros. Mi esposa trabajaba como vendedora en una tienda local de utensilios de cocina. Tenía un buen conocimiento de los utensilios de cocina y le encantaba su trabajo. Siempre había armonía en nuestra relación. Sarah se encargaba de la casa, de mí y de Rachel. Cuando llegaba a casa, siempre me esperaba una deliciosa cena. No importaba lo que hubiera pasado en el trabajo, lo duro que fuera el día, siempre ansiaba volver a casa con mi familia. Mi esposa siempre había querido tener un pasatiempo. Sentía una fuerte atracción por el arte de crear cerámica. Había deseado aprenderlo durante mucho tiempo. Cuando nuestra hija creció un poco, Sarah decidió comenzar a hacer cerámica. Encontró un taller que enseñaba esta artesanía a entusiastas. Después de su primera visita, estaba emocionada. Sarah, ¿cómo fue tu primera clase de cerámica?, le pregunté a mi esposa. Mako, fue absolutamente increíble. Es justo lo que quería, respondió ella. Me alegro por ti. ¿Lograste crear algo? Es gracioso hablar de eso. Todo se me desmoronaba en las manos. Pero nuestro instructor, Jacob, es increíblemente hábil. Crea piezas maravillosas. Todo nuestro grupo lo miraba con asombro mientras trabajaba. Prometió enseñarnos a todos, siempre y cuando trabajemos duro. Así que, espero aprender también. Por supuesto, lo harás, cariño. Confío en ti. Tendrás éxito. Gracias, amor. Y así, Sarah continuó con su nueva pasión. Al principio, todo parecía estar bien. Pero con el tiempo, noté un cambio en ella. Sarah, no quiero quejarme, pero has estado diferente últimamente, o mejor dicho, pasas menos tiempo con tu familia. Querido, ¿de qué estás hablando? Solo voy a mis clases, eso es todo. Sí, pero has dejado de preparar la cena varias veces. Casi no nos cuentas sobre tus clases ni tu trabajo. Casi no nos comunicamos. Cariño, lo siento. Sí, tal vez me dejé llevar demasiado con este pasatiempo. Estoy luchando por encontrar tiempo para todo. Intentaré equilibrarlo. No te preocupes, todo está bien. No tienes de qué preocuparte. Está bien, si lo dices así, te creo. Pero si algo te está molestando, si hay algún tema que no quieras tocar, por favor, hablemos de ello. Estoy aquí para apoyarte. Gracias, Mako, pero no hay temas así. Todo está bien. Aprecio tu apoyo. Sarah comenzó a prestar más atención a sus deberes domésticos. Esto me tranquilizó. Sin embargo, un día ocurrió algo extraño que volvió a hacerme dudar. Era el último día de trabajo de Sarah de la semana y tenía 2 días libres por delante. Como de costumbre, después del trabajo, fue a su clase de cerámica. Llegué a casa tarde, pero Sarah aún no había regresado. Comencé a llamarla, pero ella no contestaba. Estaba enfadado. Con el tiempo, tarde en la noche, Sarah finalmente regresó a casa. Trató de entrar sigilosamente, pero yo estaba despierto y la escuché. Estaba tratando de colgar su abrigo a oscuras. Encendí la luz. Sarah entrecerró los ojos. Sara, ¿pero qué demonios? ¿Dónde has estado deambulando? ¿Te das cuenta de la hora? Cariño, lo siento mucho, me quedé atrapada con el grupo. Decidimos celebrar nuestro progreso hoy. ¿Celebrar un poco? Apenas puedes mantenerte en pie. Nunca te he visto así. Es como si hubieras olvidado que tienes un hijo y un esposo en casa. Mako, de verdad no me di cuenta de cómo voló el tiempo. Estoy tan avergonzada, por favor, perdóname. ¿Y por qué no contestaste mis llamadas? ¿Por qué no me avisaste? Fue una decisión espontánea, ni siquiera noté tus llamadas al principio, y luego, para ser honesta, tenía miedo de contestar el teléfono. ¿Miedo de contestar el teléfono? ¿Me estás tomando el pelo? ¿Te comportas como una colegiala que se saltó las clases? ¿Qué te ha pasado? Este comportamiento es inaceptable. Cariño, lo siento, tengo la culpa, prometo que esto no volverá a suceder. Ahora mismo, solo quiero dormir, estoy demasiado agotada para discutir nuestra relación. Simplemente me quedé impactado por el comportamiento de Sara. Nunca se había permitido actuar así antes, era como si hubiera perdido el control. No podía entender lo que estaba sucediendo. Intenté hablar con ella varias veces, pero cada vez, Sara me aseguraba que todo estaba bien. Sus constantes disculpas pronto se convirtieron en respuestas agresivas, diciéndome que no me entrometiera, que ella no era propiedad de nadie y que sabía lo que tenía que hacer. Estaba completamente desconcertado por lo que estaba sucediendo. Su inocente pasatiempo se había convertido en una serie de situaciones desconcertantes y ya no sabía qué hacer. Tenía muchas preguntas para las cuales parecía que no podía obtener respuestas. En otra ocasión, ya estaba en casa, esperando a Sara después de sus clases. Un automóvil se detuvo, un hombre bajó de él, dio la vuelta al coche y abrió la puerta para ella. Luego, salió Sara. Este tipo abrazó a mi esposa y le dio un beso en la mejilla. Sara, ¿qué demonios fue eso?, le pregunté con enojo cuando Sara llegó a casa. ¿Y qué pasa ahora?, respondió Sara indignada. ¿Qué demonios? ¿Por qué un tipo te lleva a casa, te abraza y te besa? No es solo un tipo, es Jacob quien me dio un paseo a casa. Me sentí aliviado de que tu maestro te llevara a casa. ¿Estás fuera de tu mente? Mako, cálmate. Jacob es simplemente muy educado y bien educado, nada más. Te lo aseguro. Escucha, Sara, tus clases de cerámica se han convertido en una especie de club cerrado al que no tengo acceso. No me cuentas nada, te vas con frecuencia y apenas estás en casa. ¿Puedes finalmente explicar qué está pasando? Necesito respuestas. Esto no puede seguir así. No puedes vivir tan imprudentemente. Ni siquiera consideras el hecho de que tienes una familia. No puedo entender cómo puedes comportarte así. Y ahora, este tipo audaz te lleva a casa y te besa. Apenas lo conoces desde hace poco, ni siquiera es un amigo, y te comportas así. Mako, nunca te he dado motivo para los celos. Soy una esposa fiel y decente. Pero ahora, mírate a ti mismo. Te has convertido en un maniático nervioso en cuanto empecé a dedicar un poco más de tiempo para mí. No merezco esta actitud y desconfianza por tu parte. Sí, me he quedado hasta tarde algunas veces con mis nuevos amigos, pero no ha pasado nada malo, además de que tú constantemente creas escándalos. Sara, aún no sospecho de nada, pero has cambiado tanto que no puedo simplemente aceptarlo. Tienes razón, ya no duermo mucho, estoy constantemente ansioso, no me gusta nuestra relación. Me preocupo por nuestra familia y quiero más comunicación, conversación, discutir problemas, no fingir que todo está bien. Pero no hay problemas. Sigues inventando y complicando todo. Estoy cansada de explicarte que todo está bien. Simplemente no escuchas y no ves lo que te estoy diciendo. Otro escándalo me sacó de quicio. Solo quería ir a ese taller, golpear a este Jacob en la cara y prender fuego a todo. Me enfureció que el inocente pasatiempo de mi esposa estuviera causando tantos problemas colaterales. Era simplemente terrible. Michael, ¿estás bien? Parece que no dormiste en absoluto. Mi compañero del turno me preguntó. Sí, chicos, estoy bien, tal vez tengo un resfriado. No se preocupen. Traté de cambiar de tema. Michael, escucha, si no quieres, no cuentes. Los chicos y yo no vamos a escarbar en tu alma, pero no nos marees. Hace tiempo que notamos que algo no anda bien contigo. Si necesitas nuestra ayuda, simplemente pídela o cuéntanos, tal vez podamos ayudarte. Si te ha gustado esta historia, por favor pon un like, ayudará a promocionar este video. Ni siquiera sé qué decirte. Todo es sencillo y complicado a la vez. A la vez. En resumidas cuentas, mi matrimonio está a reventar. Tan pronto como Sarah se fue a hacer cerámica, algo incomprensible comenzó a suceder. Ni siquiera sé por qué te he contado esto. Amigo, no eres el primero ni el último. Desde otro turno, la esposa de Frank vertió tal juego en sus oídos y él creyó hasta el final, hasta que su mujer se fue con su amante y le cortó la mitad de su propiedad. No, chicos, Sarah, por supuesto, no está actuando típico ahora, pero no creo que ella es capaz de tal cosa. Mako, mírate, vas a morir muy pronto si no arreglas estos problemas. Necesitas poner a tu esposa en su lugar, de lo contrario podría terminar muy mal. Necesitas hacerla hablar. Necesitas discutir, todo en detalle. Si ella dice que todo está bien y usted siente que algo está mal aquí, entonces, no estás loco. Te aconsejo que te ocupes de esto lo antes posible. Los chicos trataron de darme buenos consejos, lo más probable es que tenían razón, pero yo todavía no podía creer que todo fuera tan mal conmigo. Me he hecho a la idea de que las excusas de Sarah no la ayudarán ahora. Nos sentaremos y hablaremos de todo sin nervios innecesarios y otras cosas, deberíamos volver a relaciones normales de nuevo, y creí que todo iría bien. Mientras estaba sumido en mis pensamientos, sonó la alarma, nos pidieron ayuda urgentemente. El nuevo hotel se incendió. Era un edificio bastante alto, de varios pisos. Al mismo tiempo, el hotel fue construido hace bastante poco, pero algo estaba mal, y se incendió el cableado. Cuando llegamos, el fuego ya había arrasado varias plantas. Los bomberos luchaban por apagar el fuego. Todavía había gente dentro del edificio. Nos apresuramos acudimos en su ayuda. Y ahora hemos traído a algunas personas. De repente oí gritos de auxilio desde un número. Todavía había gente viva, pero ya era muy difícil llegar hasta allí. Todo estaba en llamas. Pero yo corrí hacia adelante y pateé las puertas. Lo que vi me impactó. Era Sarah, mi fiel y amada esposa, que estaba vestida con un traje de látex para el entretenimiento sexual. Jacob yacía completamente desnudo en la cama, que estaba esposado a la cama. El techo de fuego se derrumbó en medio de la habitación, atrapando a Sarah en la esquina de la habitación en una trampa ardiente. Sarah, ¿qué demonios haces aquí? Mako, ¿eres tú? Sálvame, Mako, por favor. Sarah empezó a suplicar. Espera, ¿todavía te estás tirando a este cabrón y justo todo este tiempo me has empolvado el cerebro? Criatura, y vestida como la última puta. Sí, Mako, lo siento, lo siento. Sé que lo que te hice fue terrible. ¿Lo sabes? Puta barata. Pasé tanto tiempo hablando contigo. Hasta el último creí en tus mentiras insolentes. ¿Cómo pudiste dormir en paz y hacer esto? Cariño, lo siento, sé que no tengo excusa ni perdón. Es todo culpa mía. Solo por favor salva. ¿Por qué debería hacerlo? ¿Por qué debería salvar a semejante bastardo? ¿Qué dices, hijo de puta? Serás asado aquí como un cerdo en un asador. Mako, escúchame, por favor, sí, no pude resistirme a tu mujer. Soy una completa escoria, lo sé, pero tú no eres así. No nos dejarás aquí para morir. Y aquí me iré, cabrones, no me importan criaturas como vosotros. Dije y me di la vuelta. Estos bastardos comenzaron a aullar y a gritar lastimeramente, suplicaban y suplicaban más, aunque yo ya no estaba en la habitación. Ya no estaba en la habitación. Caminaba hacia la salida, pero entonces me detuve. No podía dejar a estos bastardos morir aquí. Y volví. ¿Dónde están las llaves de las esposas?, pregunté. Mako, no lo sé, se perdieron. Gracias por volver. Respondió Sarah asustada. Es demasiado pronto para dar las gracias. Te aconsejo entonces que te calles y sigas mis instrucciones si quieres vivir. Saqué las herramientas especiales que llevaba conmigo, mordí las esposas y luego arrojé la cama a las llamas para hacer un puente para que Sarah saliera de la trampa de fuego. Llevé a estos bastardos afuera. Michael, gracias, muchas gracias. Eres un ser humano de verdad, empezó a agradecerme Jacob. Cierra la boca, cabrón. Respondí y cargué mi puño en los dientes a Jacob. Y a ti, escoria, no te puedo dar las gracias por la salvación, pero ten en cuenta que no te quiero ver en casa. Nunca más. No vuelvas a caer en mis ojos. Le dije a Sarah y me fui. Después de eso, todos los conocidos y amigos odiaban a Sarah, porque su secreto se hizo muy popular. Y me divorcié de Sarah, mi hija se quedó conmigo, pero no le conté la razón por la que habíamos roto con su madre. Sarah fue despedida pronto de su trabajo, ya que el dueño de la tienda donde trabajaba valoraba mucho valores familiares y no lo toleraba. Sarah se quedó sin casa y sin trabajo. No tenía dónde ir. Su amante ya no se comunicaba con ella. Me enteré de que alquiló un pequeño apartamento, en la planta baja en una zona muy desfavorecida. Trabajaba a tiempo parcial en una fábrica, envasado de alimentos. Sarah llevaba una vida bastante solitaria, no se comunicaba realmente con nadie. Esta situación tocó fondo. Después de un tiempo, decidí dejar atrás el pasado, olvidar viejos agravios. En casa encontré algunas cosas viejas de Sarah, decidí llevárselas personalmente. Averigüé la dirección donde vivía y fui a verla. Subí a la casa y llamé a la puerta, pero nadie me abrió. Nadie me abrió. Decidí mirar por las ventanas, tal vez Sarah estuviera en casa. Empecé a mirar por las ventanas, y de repente vi a Sarah, estaba colgada de un lazo, había decidido ahorcarse. Corrí dentro de la casa y rompí la puerta de su apartamento, rápidamente arranqué la bisagra y dejé a Sarah en el suelo. En el suelo. Era evidente que lo había hecho justo cuando me acerqué a su apartamento. La cuerda ya había conseguido estrangularla, empecé desesperadamente a darle respiración artificial y de repente Sarah volvió a la vida. Mako, ¿eres tú? ¿Qué haces aquí?, preguntó Sarah con voz ronca. Te estoy salvando la vida por segunda vez. ¿Por qué estás así? Gracias, Mako, pero no era necesario, mi vida está por los suelos, no puedo seguir así. Dijo Sarah con lágrimas. Todo el mundo, parad inmediatamente. ¿Os habéis olvidado de que tenéis una hija? ¿No os importa? ¿No os importa? Todavía no le he dicho lo que hiciste. Y tienes la oportunidad de reanudar la comunicación con ella. ¿De verdad lo harás por mí? ¿Me dejarás comunicarme con mi hija?, preguntó Sarah esperanzada. Sí, Sarah, ya no te guardo rencor. Ni yo ni mi hija nos sentiremos mejor si tú te mueres. Ven a visitarnos, pero antes ponte en orden y olvídate del suicidio. Dije con una sonrisa. Gracias, Michael, gracias. Esto significa mucho para mí. Después de eso, ayudé a Sarah a encontrar un trabajo decente. Tenía un buen amigo que necesitaba un vendedor. Le pedí que Llevara a Sara a la sección de utensilios de cocina. Sara volvió a la vida y empezó a comunicarse con su hija. En cuanto a Jacob, el duro destino volvió a castigarle. Su taller se incendió, Jacob sufrió graves quemaduras, y estuvo recuperándose durante mucho tiempo. Después de eso, se decía que Jacob repetía constantemente sobre él, merecido castigo del destino por sus actos del pasado. Ahora Jacob trabajaba en una residencia de ancianos, enseñaba alfarería a todo el que quisiera, ayudaba a la gente a encontrar un nuevo hobby por una modesta paga. En cuanto a mí, estaba convencido de que la ira y el odio no traen la felicidad. La calma y la fe en él. La calma y la fe en el futuro llegan cuando puedes dejar atrás el pasado, dejar atrás todo lo malo. Esto es lo que me ayudó a seguir construyendo mi vida feliz. Si te ha gustado esta historia, por favor dale me gusta y deja cualquier comentario. Esto es importante para nosotros y ayudará a promover este video. Gracias por vernos.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.